You think the dark is scary? The Victorians knew the truth. The light is worse. Welcome to Arctic Gothic, the only horror tradition where the bodies never rot. They just wait. 4 books prove the polar ice isn't sublime. It's hell with good lighting. Quick context. The polar cold preserves everything. Seals, ships, people. Microbes go quiet. Wood doesn't decay. Blood clots and freezes. Time stalls. That's the terror. Things don't end. They linger. First, Poe's The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym, 1838. Poe sends us south, not north, but the fear is the same. White infinity, time stopped, reason shredded. The book ends with a boat racing into a hot, milky sea near the pole, birds screaming like alarms, Tekeli-li, as a giant shrouded figure rises out of the mist. Poe's last line slams the door, and the hue of the skin of the figure was of the perfect whiteness of the snow, pure, blinding, annihilating white. But here's the detail that crawls under your skin. On the raft, 4 survivors draw lots to see who gets eaten. The cabin boy loses. His name, Richard Parker. That coincidence is so obscene it feels like a curse. You can't unhear it. Second, Arthur Conan Doyle's The Captain of the Pole Star. Doyle wasn't guessing. He served as a ship's surgeon on an Arctic whaler in 1880 and came home with nightmares. The story is a logbook of a ship locked in ice. The captain hears something out on the floes. Not a creature, a pressure. The air was filled with that indescribable moaning sound, a sound as though the spirits of all those who lay beneath those treacherous waters were sending a sad warning. He starts seeing a figure between the hummocks, his dead lover, he thinks. Look, there, man, there, between the hummocks, flying from me, by God, flying from me. He jumps, he freezes. Doyle once wrote of the ice's strange, weird beauty and a waiting presence. That's the Arctic here, a watchful emptiness that only needs your breath to fail. Third, W. Clark Russell's The Frozen Pirate, 1887. The cleanest Victorian zombie story because it doesn't need magic. It uses temperature. A sailor, Paul Rodney, boards a schooner locked inside an iceberg and finds an entire pirate crew preserved at table, as if the toast never ended. They were statues of ice. Their eyes were open, glassy, and fixed. The very air seemed frozen into silence. Rodney warms one man, Jules, and the impossible happens. The man groaned, a sound that seemed to tear its way up from the very bottom of his frozen soul. Jules reanimates and then ages in fast forward as heat wakes time. That's the true nightmare. Your life paused by cold and then collected with interest. Last, Dan Simmons's The Terror and the Historical Reality Behind It, the 1845 Franklin Expedition. Simmons adds a monster, the Toonback, but the real beast didn't roar. It gnawed. 129 men vanished. Years later, bones turned up with cut marks on the long bones and skulls, evidence of butchery and marrow extraction. You don't get marrow without cracking the femur. You don't cut a skull unless you're scraping flesh. Inuit witnesses told investigators they had cut the flesh off the bones as if someone had cut it off to eat. Some accounts describe piles of boots stuffed with cooked meat. Imagine the taste of boiled leather and human fat. You don't need a demon when famine and cold do the job. Erebus and Terror, 2 graves named after hell, drifting in the white silence. So what ties these together? Preservation. Rot is merciful. It ends the story. The polar cold suspends it and makes you keep reading. Poe gives you a prophecy that comes true on open water. Doyle records a man stepping into a supernatural hush. Russell plays resurrection with a thermometer. Franklin turns the whole genre into forensics. Which ordeal would you survive? Poe's raft, Doyle's moaning ice, Russell's thawed pirate, or Franklin's starving camp? Drop your answer and tell me which book gets under your skin. If you want more 19th century nightmares with receipts, subscribe and stick around. The Arctic doesn't need ghosts. It just needs hunger, silence, and time. Until next time, keep your candles lit and your prefaces loaded.